I'm Sally, Mayor Jonisch. I was born in Los Angeles, California, May 4th, 1929. However, my mother wasn't happy and she was lonesome there, and we had to go back to Omaha. So by the time I was a year old, we had already gone back to Omaha. And that's where I grew up and was raised. I went to Webster School the first couple of years. We lived in an area where there were so many Jewish families that were living all around us. The Malashocks, the Tullys, the Rosenblums, I really forget half, but Kirschenbaums. We were all within a couple blocks radius of this area. Then I went to Henry VIII School, and there too, I went through 8th grade there, and our neighbors were the Biebers, Dr. Bieber, Chuck Bieber and I. Hubie Rosenblum was there. We've been friends since years, and of course his loss now. We knew each other since we were little kids, and that was very good. But they're dropping like flies now, I'm afraid. Anyway, then I went to Central High School and graduated there in 47. And then I went to University of Nebraska for a year, came back and went to Omaha University then. And then to go back to my family, my mother is Rose Feldman Mayer, and she was born in Omaha. My father, Robert Mayer, came from Indianapolis. He and his brother, Jack Mayer, who was the attorney, came to Omaha. They had an older sister, Esther Levinson, and they came to Omaha to live, and that's where Mom and Dad met, and went on from there. Bernie and I, well, actually, my mother introduced Bernie and I. She knew him, but I never knew him growing up. My brother did. And I have a brother in California, a couple years older. He's very ill now, too, and failing. And I just saw him visiting out there. Okay.
Let's talk about your mom.
Okay.
Just what can you tell me about her?
Okay. She was quite a person. Everybody loved her. She was the oldest sibling in her family. The next one was my Uncle Doc Feldman. And then there was another brother, Saul Feldman, who was killed in an automobile accident. And then the youngest was her sister, Ann Slusky, Ann Feldman Slusky. And she was like having an older sister. I adored her. We were very close and have remained. And my mother was the last one living of her siblings. And I left Omaha in 54. We moved away, Bertie and I. But all my cousins remained very close with Mom. They all adored her. The Slusky boys, there was Jerry, who was his older brother Howard is no longer with us, and the Feldmans, Dick Feldman, Janie Feldman, well, Nancy and Tom, of course, have lived in Omaha, and they have been wonderful. We're all very close. I, being one of the oldest, also in the family, I babysat all of them when they were growing up. And they all have remained, they were all wonderful all the years that I was not living in Omaha. My dad passed away very young. I thought he wasn't even 60 yet. He had a heart attack and then he had a stroke. And that was pretty young and fast. So Mother really held down the fort for a good many years. But I had wonderful friends in Omaha that all the years were very close and took care of her. Dottie Rosenblum is one. When Hubie married her, I fell in love with her too, and We remain very close all through the years. To this day, we talk all the time.
Did your father have siblings?
Yes, 10 of them.
Do you remember them?
Sure. My father's, I didn't know the mother, my grandmother, who I was named after. She died when all the boys came home from World War I. She was so happy and laughing so hard, she died of a heart attack, just like that. My grandfather, Grandpa Mayer, lived to be 90. He really just died of old age. He was quite a man. There's one sister left in California. She is now 104, and she's in a home. She has Alzheimer's and other things, but I just talked to a cousin there that really was raised by her, and she said it's amazing. She gets around with a walker, and she doesn't always know me or anybody else, but she's going along, and that's simply amazing. Of course, Jack Mayer was a well-known attorney in Omaha, and when we came back to Omaha, we were gone for 30 years, Bernie and I. When we came back, it was like running the hospital run. We had our hands full for 10 years in Omaha. We had my mother, and we had Bernie's sister and brother-in-law, Ann and Sam Katzman, were not well, and we were doing Meals on Wheels. And Uncle Jack, he had his two sons were not there, so we were called on. We were having and doing for the 10 years we came back to Omaha. It was unbelievable, but I was glad we were back there then. That's all I can say, Bernie was raised by his three older sisters. He lost his mother when he was 9 years old after surgery, and his father was killed in an automobile accident 2 years later. So he really, from 10, 11, he was raised by his three older sisters. Ann Katzman and Sam were actually his legal guardians. The other sister was Lil. She married Arnold Steiner. She's no longer with us. And the third sister, Bernie was 10 years younger than the youngest sister. And Sylvia was married to Harry Rosenstein from Omaha. And actually, Sylvia just died this last year too. She was 93 when she died, but she had gotten really ill. So, and she was living out east in a retirement home. And so, and Bernie, it's amazing because he had a rough younger years, that he came out with an unbelievable personality that everybody raved about.
How about some of the other mayors? You said that there was a large family.
Yes. Well, one of the older sisters was Esther Levinson, who came to Omaha first. And that's how my dad and my Uncle Jack came there. They had a store on North 24th Street, Levinson's. It had everything in it as a kid, I remember. It was an everything, store. Clothes, everything imaginable, furniture, shoes, And then there was another older sister, the oldest, Lena, lived in California. That's when my folks moved out there because her husband was going blind. They had a stationery store there, and he needed help. So my dad, they moved out there to try and help and run the business, which is too bad. It turned into a tremendous business, but my mother got sick. She couldn't tolerate the dampness and so on, and so they had to go back to Omaha, and she was lonesome besides. Then in Indianapolis, there was another brother, Mo, Uncle Mo Mayer, who was a florist, had a big Mayer's florist in Indianapolis, and Harry Mayer, I don't even remember what he did. And I mentioned Sarah May was her father was deaf and dumb, and he married, but Helen Schwimmer, the one who's still living, is the one who raised her in Indianapolis and has been the caretaker really all the years. So they were a neat family. They really were. We visited there a couple of times. My grandpa Mayer used to watch him make soup. He made the best soup, chicken soup imaginable. He was a cute little short man and very much fun to be with. My grandparents in Omaha, Esther and Harry Fellman, well, I only remember him as not being well. He had arthritis, very bad. He used to go to the springs thinking it would help. He even they came out to Arizona one time thinking that would help. I don't think anything really helped that much at the time. In fact, my cousin Tom Fellman, I keep telling him, I think he's a spitting image of Grandpa Fellman. So, and my grandpa was a fun man too to be with. We played gin all the time. And in fact, Nancy, who just wrote the book Seder Stories, which is terrific, and I said, I think you missed out. I was the only one that was at our grandparents' Seders. And, but if you write the next book, we can go into that one.
What do you remember about those Seders?
My grandpa loved to sing. And everybody, we had to sit there and sing all night. He absolutely adored it. Of course, my mother and my grandmother worked so hard. There was no freezers then or anything like that. So they had to start. I remember changing the dishes and helping them, whatever I could. I was a little girl. And we had everybody there imaginable. We had the very long dining table that went with the tables all into the living room. And they were fun seders. And everybody participated. And they'd come home from the synagogue, and my mother was frying those potato latkes, and everybody was eating them. They were made out of matzah. They really weren't potatoes. They were the matzah latkes, and they were wonderful. And it went on and on. That's terrific. It was wonderful. Beautiful memories from then.
When you were in elementary school, Sally, where did you live?
I lived on right off of 33rd Street, right across from Henry Yates. I'm trying to remember the street. I don't right now. But I lived right across the street from Henry Yates School.
And you walked back and forth to school?
Oh, sure. But even when I went to Webster School, which was a longer walk, that was kindergarten, first and second grade. But that was way up the hill, and I remember the snow piles. And, of course, when it got really bad, my father would come pick me up and take me, of course. But other than that, we walked.
What are some of your memories growing up at that age? Your family life and so on.
Well, when I was very young and we lived on Myrtle Avenue, I played football with all the guys. There was my brother, there was Harold Moser, there was Paul Gitlin, there was, I'm losing, I don't even remember some of them. There were so many of them. The Tully boys, some of the Kirschenbaums. I mean, they had an empty lot next to us that I'm trying to remember what family built there, right on the corner. But we used to play in that empty lot all the time. So it was a fun life. I remember, we used to have great times.
How about just holiday dinners? Did the family get together?
Yeah. My mother was doing it with my grandmother for years, and yes, we would always, have great. My mother did seders for years, and then Frances Philman, Uncle Doc's wife, did them at her house for years. And then she died very young. And then my Aunt Ann Slusky, and we had great fun at them all through the years. We came in, I think, one of the last ones, and then I did them in Kansas City. I always had big seders there for many years. hopefully then the folks would try to come in when they could, so.
You mentioned how close you were to the Feldman side of the family. Were you as close with the Mayer children?
No, because we did not live in the same city. They all lived in Indianapolis. And there were, my Uncle Mo had 3 sons, and the ones in California were that much older. So no, we, growing up in Omaha, there really weren't. Alan and Jerry Mayer, yes. Of course, we lost Jerry a couple years ago. And I didn't talk to Alan. He lives in Northern California. And I talked to his wife the other day. He's very bad now, too. He's been sick, but he's got Alzheimer's, and he's really gotten very, very bad now. So, but of course, Alan and Jerry, I was very close with Jerry. Was a very special guy, and he called me maybe 2 days before to say goodbye. It was amazing. Of course, he had written, and we knew what was going on. He's been sick for a long time. He was quite a guy, and brilliant besides. And I keep in touch with one of his daughters, Beth, quite often. And she lives right up in Northern California, too. But nowadays, the families are so spread out, it makes it more difficult.
I want to hear about your high school years.
They were a lot of fun. Had a great time. They had the sororities then and on, and I was in, it was called UT, the girls, but in my days, and I don't know if it's the junior year or senior year, when they said they were not good, we disbanded it. We decided this wasn't the thing. Okay, they were getting too snotty anyway, as far as I was concerned. But we had a good time. We had great parties. We would go to the center across the street right after school, spend a lot of hours there. And we had parties and dances, and of course AZA was terrific, and we went to those. And we had wonderful years in high school, I thought. And times have changed now. I keep saying, I'm glad I'm not raising children now. I don't know how it's so much harder what goes on. So.
In high school, do you remember some of your friends?
Yeah, a lot of them. The Lincoln girls. I was very close. And Margie Brodkey Kirschenbaum and I were the closest of friends. And we roomed together in college. And that first year, neither one of us went back there the second year, but that's all right. And, let's see. Well, the Lincoln girls, we were sort of in the same area, and Barbara Lincoln and then Martha Lincoln, and our schools, we were in 2 different grade schools, but we were competitive in volleyball and whatever sport else we played then. So.
Were you part of the gang that went across straight to the Jewish Community Center?
Every afternoon after school, we would go there. That's all. Never went anyplace else.
And how about dating during those years?
Yes. I had a few. Let's see. Well, I dated Howard Rubeck, but he was part of our family. That was, and we remained close friends, and with his wife Faye all the years, too. And I dated Steve Schwartz for a while, and I dated, I'm trying to remember. I think I'm getting old, I'm losing my memory of some of the names too. But I had a few.
And what about, did you work during your high school years at all?
I worked part-time for Zales. It was during the war also. And they needed some extra help. And I was too young. I worked just wrapping packages and answering the phone for a while there.
What kind of work did your father do?
He was in the insurance business for a long time. And then he was selling liquor. And I forgot the liquor company in Omaha. They were Jewish people, and I don't remember their name now.
And he worked for them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you told me how you met Bernie.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear some more about that.
Oh, okay. Well, my uncle Abe Slusky, he opened up the amusement park over in Council Bluffs, and then my folks, my dad had a cotton candy machine they put up, and they had games out there. So he was out there, mother was working out there. We were all out there helping, all the time. And one evening, let's see, it was after my first year of college. And in college, I was dating actually a guy from Chicago. And Bob Weinberg I dated. And anyway, but we were out. My friend Martha Lincoln and I had nothing to do that night. I don't even know if it was a weeknight or a weekend. So we decided to go out there, and talking to my mom out there. We were standing there, I don't know, with Dad, by probably the cotton candy stand, which I make very good too. That was terrific. Anyway, and Bernie came up with let's see, Mike Diamond and Friedman. God, I can't think of his first name. They were bumming around together. And my mother introduced me. She knew Bernie. And of course, he knew my brother. They played cards together and whatever. So she really introduced us, because I never knew him. I mean, he was in World War II. He was gone when I was, growing up. Anyway, afterwards, I had a friend coming to visit from California, and I was wanted to fix her up with somebody, so I was trying to find him. Well, he wasn't listed in the book because he was living with Ann and Sam after the war, and he was working for the Goldsteins at Goldstein Chapman. He in advertising. He headed up their advertising. Actually, Bernie went to the Kansas City Art Institute on scholarship. He did paint very good, but then of course, painting there was no money in making, doing that, and he went into advertising and doing that. So finally, I found out where to reach him there, and I think I went to the store and looked him up. Well, because I used to shop there. I had a wonderful saleswoman who used to call me when she got things, special clothes in for me that I, and call my mother to tell her. So went up there and I said, I was trying to fix him up. And he said, well, no, he said, how would you like to go out such and such a night with me? So I said, okay, why not? No, I wasn't dating anybody special then. I had dated some of the guys in Lincoln too, quite a bit. Finkelstein and Chesson, and we were all in that same crowd, And anyway, so he took me out. We started going out. He did the menu for the restaurant. It was off of downtown. It was really a great restaurant. I can't think of the name now. But they had the best food in town. And it was pretty nice. Art was the guy's name that owned it. They had a bar on one side and the restaurant was on the other side. So we went there for dinner the first night. However, and we started dating. However, I had been planning to go visit California, my aunt and uncle, and one of my dad's sisters. There were just like a year apart, all these brothers and sisters. And this was my Aunt Ruth, who I had visited in Chicago. She had one son, Stanley, and we were we were the same age. There was a month difference, and we were very close, okay? He would come to Omaha, I went to Chicago. They were originally in Chicago. Well, I was planning and saving money to go out to California to visit, so I did. Bernie was very upset that I was leaving, and when I left, he spent almost every night either at the folks' house or over at the park visiting with the family, and he would call me every night. And my cousin in California said, "That guy must be nuts." I said, "Yeah, I guess so, I don't know." But in the meantime, I had, in California, a lot of Omahans, and they were showing me around pretty good. And Bobby Friedman was out there then, Sandy Finkelstein was out there then. There was a whole group of Omahans and Lincoln guys. And so I had a wonderful time. And that's when I had long hair, and that's when I first had it cut out there, really short. And I'll never forget, I took a train out and back. There was no flying then, and when I came back, I thought my dad was going to have the heart attack then, right away, because he was so upset. How could I do that? But Bernie liked us, so that was okay too. So that's how we got met, and we got engaged that fall, and we got married on May the 16th, 1950.
I'd like to hear about your wedding.
Well, it wasn't really a big wedding. We had to keep it down to about 100, and we got married at the Blackstone. It's shortly after that, there were no more weddings except at home or at the synagogue. Rabbi Kripke married us, and we had maybe about 100 people, and we had to keep it down, and my mother ended up inviting the oldest first cousin out of each family group. The Feldmans were a pretty big family all around, but it was lovely, and and we had a reception afterwards right there, and Bernie and I went away. We went to New Orleans on our honeymoon. We did not have a car then, but his sisters and brother-in-law Sylvia and Harry Rosenstein were in Omaha then and making a change, and they loaned us their car to take on our honeymoon, which was very nice. So we went to New Orleans, and we ran into people we knew there from Omaha, which was unbelievable. And my husband got he's very fair, redheaded, and he got a horrible sunburn at Lake Pontchartrain. So that was an unforgettable incident there. So.
Who were your attendants?
Well, I had a cousin. I had Helen Winston, who was Esther Levinson's daughter. She was a cousin, but she was a contemporary, age-wise, of my mother. I had Margie Kirschenbaum. Okay, talk about I have one brother, who was Harold Mayer, and then he went out to California, and he called himself Brad. He had a great voice and acting, and he tried to get into, the movies, anything. He tried for quite a while, but that's a pretty hard thing to knock. He met a gal out there, and she was Jewish, and they got married. They had 2 children. I can't say a lot about that. Okay, there was a dark spot in there, which it was too bad, But it happens when his wife kind of just hadn't disowned, separated from the family for a good many years, not close. She passed away a good 12 years ago. She became quite sick, and but after that, of course, I've been very close again with my brother. We were very close growing up. We weren't even 2 years apart, so we always ran in the same crowds, and we were very close. So that was a pretty sad thing. He has 2 children that live out there, and which I've kept in contact with, and of course in the last years, I have a daughter living in California, so we're out there a lot, and I have been closer with him, and we've kept in very good contact, like nothing ever happened all through the years. So that's fine, whatever, But,
And he's your only sibling, just the
Yes.
one brother.
mhm.
Now I want you to tell me about your children.
Okay. We have 3 daughters. The oldest one, Terry, was born in Omaha at St. Joe Hospital. And she was born in 52, in June of 52. And we left Omaha. Bernie was with Goldstein Chapman's, and then he was selling metal slates from advertising to Jaime Fair, and he used to visit with him. And Jaime Fair approached him about going to work for him in the scrap business. And it sounded pretty interesting. And Bernie said, why not, you know? Well, he did, and he learned it pretty good. And they moved us to Dallas, Texas, to open up an office there. And we loved Dallas. Our second daughter was born in Dallas. And let's see, she was born in 56. And at the time I was pregnant with her, Jaime Fair wanted us to go to Oklahoma City and open up there. So we said, okay, you know, but I wouldn't move until after number 2 daughter was born. So we moved there then after she was born. She was just a couple months old, bought a home there, and it was, we had some wonderful people there we got to know, and we were doing okay. And then the years have gone. Then he wanted us to come back to Omaha. So we were in the process of coming back to Omaha. We brought the 2 girls, and we were going to leave them with the folks. And we were going up there to look for a place to live when Jaime Fair died suddenly. And then Harvey said, no, he said, if you don't mind, I need you in Kansas City. And he had somebody else, and he wanted us there because they were going to have a scrap yard there and this and that. So instead of looking for a place in Omaha, and I'm trying to think, must have been in 59, 60, something like that, we left the kids with my folks, the 2 girls, and we went into Kansas City to look for a place. And then we went back to get the girls, and that's when we ended up moving to Kansas City, and we spent close to 30 years in Kansas City, and it was a wonderful place to be. I mean, Omaha's a great city to grow up in all the way around, and Kansas City is equally, if not more. We had a wonderful life there, and they opened up a scrap yard there, he and this other man that was with Fairs. And but of course, the scrap business, they were always having closing up and this and that, and things were going, you know, not for a long time, nothing. And then somebody, I don't know who approached Bernie first. Was it Mort Richards or Henry Rikus? They called him one day and said, you know, would you be interested? Bernie said, I don't know anything about the bottle business. I don't know, you know, beans about it. He said, well, you know, you could learn. It wouldn't be, you know. Bernie had the most outstanding personality imaginable. Anyway, after visiting and having several meetings with him, they came to terms, and he went to work for the Rikuses in Kansas City. He took over their offices in the warehouse there, and he did phenomenal business. The first year, he turned it around so tremendous, it was unbelievable, and it got bigger and bigger. And he worked hard studying. Every night he would study. You know, there was so much to these container businesses, and then it was coming into the plastic, and the syringes, and he worked in St. Joe, Missouri, was this tremendous pharmaceutical for animals, and they developed some marvelous things. I think that the measles serum was one of the things that came out of there. That one time we took the kids, all had to be, they used them for testing, and all our friends' kids went down there. But he built up quite a business there. And then they sold out. I forgot what year it was when they sold out to Alco Standard, the Rikus family. And then they made Bernie, they wanted him to become president of the Rikus, the whole thing. But he wanted him back in Omaha. That's how it brought us back to Omaha. We moved back there in '86. So, and then they sold that out from under, and they gave him early retirement. And that's, so, and we stayed there, of course, until I wouldn't leave as long as Mother was in her own place there until the last month of her life. And, of course, since we were there, we were the ones, the caregivers, back and forth with everything. So, and then she was in and out of the hospital with a lot of things. It was just before her 91st birthday birthday was in December, and she died in November. But she was at the Blumpkin home for 4 weeks, actually, is all. So, now remember your in-laws, they were lovely people. They really, I don't know, were you in Omaha? I don't remember.
I want you to tell me about your daughters.
Okay. My oldest daughter first she went to the University of Missouri in Columbia. She was very interested in journalism, and she was very good. She was a very good student, and of course in English. Anyway, the first year she thought, Missouri was the journalism school. Well, after 1 year there, she was very disappointed. She couldn't really take any of the courses she wanted. So then she ended up going to KU, and she graduated with KU with an English with a degree in education in English. And her first year, she got a job. She was student teaching the first year out, and she took everything too hard, all the students. And she was in not a very good school district where parents could care less, She couldn't contact them. They didn't want any part, whatever, And that was very disillusioning. In the meantime, she's looking for many jobs and sending resumes out. And there was a place up in Seattle, up in the mountains. There were 2 cities right on the other side of the mountains. And they needed somebody to write a manual for pipe fitters. They were doing special testing for the Atomic Energy Commission. To make a long story short, they made her. She didn't know what to ask for, and Bertie said, "Put it up there because they're looking, and you'll come down." Well, she got a pretty good salary for a young kid, and they shipped her up there and her car, which they have to go over the mountains. She spent a little over a year up there at this Atomic Energy Commission. It was like a no man's land. She got quite an education. She had to be cleared with the government completely because of the work they were doing. And they came by to every teacher she had, every neighbor in our area, questioning her and how she was and her affiliations. And it was, when they came to the door to me originally, I just got petrified. What happened now? But they said, well, they have to check everybody out completely. She was already up there before they ever finished all this, clearing her. And she spent about a year up there. She made some wonderful connections with this company, and but then she had finished it, and she came back home. But then they had an opening with the same company in California. So she spent some time at home, and then she went out there. She wasn't quite sure, and she went out there. So she's been out there for many, many years. She's worked for the Santa Monica paper at one time. She worked for a bank out there. She's had her own business for a good many years called Jonisch Communications. And this is her third husband, but they've been married already for 15 years, 16 years now. And it's interesting. She met this one young man, he was from New York, and that one didn't last terribly long. However, his parents from New York, then they moved out to Southern California. They were so in love with Terry that they still remain very close with her all these years. Her second husband was not Jewish. He came from a very well-to-do family, and they're both psychologists, the parents, in Northern California, but also very strange people. Anyway, they had a very small wedding out there, and but that also didn't last too long. And then she met Joel. His last name is Lowell, Lowell. His parents are European. They're French, very French. They've been in, and he was born here, and so was his sister. But they all speak fluent French, and they're just. His father is 101 now, but he is failing, and they're in a retirement place. And the mother's doing quite well for her age too. She's in her upper, 80s, mid 80s, I guess now. And and Terry's retained having her own communication. She's had to cut down because business has been changing so much. But she does all kinds of writing and publications and freelance and this kind of thing. So our second daughter, Carla, she went to she went to KU 1 year, and then she went to Stevens in Columbia. She went in for design, clothing making. She can sew. She can make almost anything. She's very talented. I guess she takes after Bernie with her artistic and talent. Anyway, she was in the garment industry. She was a designer in Dallas for. She graduated from Stevens and then spent a year working in Kansas City Kansas City used to be a pretty big garment manufacturer too, for Jacobs Company. She went to work there, sweeping floors or whatever she could do to get some experience. And then she had some very good friends from Dallas that she went to school with. And of course, Dallas was a big market. So one day, Bernie and I were on a trip and came back, and she says, I'm going to go to Dallas. I'm going to go stay with so-and-so, a friend. I'm taking my sleeping bag and this and that in the car. She packed up and went there. She found a little apartment. She got a job right away. She was also waiting tables in Kansas City for... Harry Starker's was one of the big restaurants. Only at lunchtime. She made a fortune in tips. It was unbelievable. But, of course, she got a transfer down to work for them in Dallas until she found something. Well, she got in with one of the manufacturers down there, designing. And then she moved into another one, and she was doing pretty good, but she could see the handwriting on the wall. There's just no money in it. So finally she said, I'm just spinning my wheels. I mean, there's no money. So she decided to go to look for something else, and she went into sales. And she was selling trim, Western trim, and for all kinds of garments and fabrics. Well, she did phenomenally well. Unbelievable. This little kid just was setting the world on fire. And anyway, she couldn't wait to buy her own place and buy a Lexus car. She needed a bigger car anyway to hold all her samples and so on. And but then, of course, the system has changed. Everything is being manufactured overseas. And that market really, Dallas is basically closed up in the garment industry because of what happened. So then she started doing that, and then she dated a lot of guys. She was ready to get married many times, and she would never date anybody but Jewish men. She said she wouldn't marry anybody but, they were falling down, and they were just not up to speed, up to the quality she was looking for. And finally one day she was invited to dinner, and this other man was invited. There were some other people. Well, they hit it off. His name is Sam Adams, and he was a widower, and he had actually 2 stepchildren. He had been widowed for, I don't know, 8 to 10 years already. Anyway, they hit it off so fast, it was unbelievable. He is truly a sweetheart. We all fell in love with him. And they got married in '01 in Dallas. And no, he's not Jewish, he's Catholic. He went to Catholic school. But they have a wonderful relationship. He goes to services with her. She's phenomenal about going to services and holidays, and she has gone to church with him. She pushes him because he's kind of steered away from it through the years with some of the things that have gone on in the Catholic churches. So he's kind of gotten burned out, but they have a wonderful relationship. He's the greatest guy. He was wonderful to Bernie. All our son-in-laws are. They've all been wonderful, truly. And the girls have been running from Dallas to here, and California to here, back and forth, all through the years. And then Randy, our youngest daughter, was born in Kansas City. And we brought her. She came to school out in Phoenix. We brought her out here, and she basically stayed. And she met her husband, Mike Kennedy. Of course, he's not Jewish either, but very nice man, hardworking. And they stayed, and she stayed. So they had 2 boys. The second son, who was 18, we just lost right after Bernie. Okay, I think I'd like to end this now by just telling my dear family how much I love them. And I love my son-in-laws, my grandsons, and it's been wonderful. You've all been wonderful to Dad and I, and we appreciate it. And I hope you have wonderful lives ahead of you.